our story time on Nintendo World Championships 2015. And again, the Nintendo World Championships NES edition's coming out this week.
Yeah.
You know, I've strangely come around on that game. I cannot explain how or why this
Marketing
happened,
worked.
but I'm kind of excited for that. Now, you know what? So in Korea, I saw so much advertising for that, like
Oh,
all
really?
over the place, and that really
Cool.
surprised me.
Wow.
I always thought this game was like, oh, this is probably some like NOA initiative. Like, is this even going to release in other territories? But I saw it everywhere, and I've been seeing tweets from people who live in Japan of like, oh, this is on the subway, this is in this store. It's like this seems to be like a
Oh,
global, like big initiative to push this game. So that's
marketing
maybe
worked on
giving me
you.
a bit more confidence of like maybe this is cool. I don't know. And then like I am very much like, you know, the demographic that like you grew up with Nintendo Power, like, you know, lived through all these Nintendo World Championships. So I don't think it's going to be like a 10 out of 10 game, but I want to give it a try, and I think you and I should do something with it too. So we'll figure that out when you get back.
Yeah, I'm definitely like I was gonna play this game regardless because it looked cool, but I mean I didn't have like the highest expectations for. I'm sure
I'm
these
pretty sure we
games.
just did an episode that came out last week where you said you were not.
Really? No,
Yeah,
I said
so
I was gonna
I
play
guess
it.
you could say you're very excited for me to buy it and for you to play that version.
Exactly. I am. I'm gonna play
Okay.
it, but I'll play yours. Anyways,
So 2015, yes. So we were there for this. We were involved in this. And this was, you know, it's so funny that we were just talking about E3 2014 and how successful that was and how over time that has felt like a really big moment for the company. And this was obviously the follow-up to E3 2014, or just a year later. And this was a year after introducing all of this live programming with
mhm.
Treehouse Live, which was such a huge hit, with the Smash Invitational, which was this huge, complex stage event that went really well and was also streamed and was really positive. So everybody was just feeling really positive and motivated to keep innovating in this space of like digital programming and you know streamed content out to the quote home audience as we called it.
Yeah, right.
So I think as people, you know, continued to think and brainstorm about what we could do, this was a pretty logical idea. I think like
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was like, oh, why would you do that? Like just, it was a pretty cool idea at the time.
It was a cool idea and was a logical next step. And the other thing that was sort of at the core of this that kind of sold it into everyone to agree that this was a cool idea was that there are a lot of, quote, esports or competitive gaming events out there, but we were going to try really hard to do this like the unique Nintendo way. And whenever, there is kind of a initiative or idea around like let's do something that already exists in the world, um, finding that unique Nintendo angle was really important, and because the unique Nintendo angle was so obvious and so just like natural, I think people were like on board right away and were pretty excited about um, doing something like that, like sort of an esports kind of thing, but with a unique Nintendo twist to it.
Yeah, that's a good point because with Smash, like the company was taking more of an interest in competitive gaming and, you
Yeah,
know, trying to see what it could do in Smash, but just more broadly as esports was coming up as a thing. Like that's a very good point. But yeah, like this Nintendo World Championships type event had not been done since 1990, so 25 years later, and you're on this cool anniversary.
yeah,
There's just the inherent drama of the competition makes for great programming, and you can promote whatever games you want. Like, you know, you can go into the deep history of Nintendo and pick something cool that gives people the nostalgia angle. You can call your number with the new games and put those at the forefront and let people see
yep,
that those are cool. So the format has a lot going for it.
right.
So it got first revealed in this announcement video with Reggie, which is, dare I say, now quite
Iconic.
iconic.
Yeah,
And
iconic.
it wasn't just for Nintendo World Championship. It was basically revealing all of Nintendo's plans
For E3
for
that
that
year.
E3.
Yeah,
And, you know, it featured Reggie firing Bill, which was iconic, doing training for the Nintendo World Championships. And it was just like like watching everything for this, I was like, man, this really was that
this will
era.
never happen again.
This will never be happening again.
This will never happen again. And like, it was so cool, like shooting that we were part of the shoot that took place in the Redmond offices for this, and kind of the scripting and all of the different like little gaffes and laughs. Like that was part of this core team that we were on that developed a lot of this stuff. And it is such like a product of the time, because it like was Nintendo's feeling at the time to be very like innovative and kind of out there. They're so different from that now. It's hard to even look back and understand, like, and even just like wrap your head around how this actually happened. And obviously, like, Reggie's not there anymore, so this will never happen again. But it just feels like a very special time and place for Nintendo as a company that might never, ever be replicated again in the future. So
it's a fun video also because a lot of the sort of bit players in it are people like that we worked with. Like, yeah. Like one of the people is like John Yeckley, who ended up working for both of us. Katie Cornish, who she got like lasered by Fizamec. Also previously, she was the head of social at the time.
At E3 that year, she recreated that scene by rubbing. She had like black eyeshadow. She rubbed it all over her face so that she looked like burnt. And we took other photos for her and Reggie with the sunglasses on. So yeah, I mean, there's so many just like zany moments that if you, I can only imagine, trying to suggest something like this to Nintendo right now, and how quickly they would just like put you down and say like absolutely not.
And the person who was really like the project lead on this was Eric Peterson, who was of Treehouse and was previously of the localization team, was a good friend of ours. And he's since moved on from Nintendo, and it's amazing like how deeply involved he was of every single aspect of this, down to like almost like he wasn't the official host, but he was very involved on stage, and just like every minute detail he had to have down and figured out.
But he was so good at it, though.
Yes.
He was like the best at it, and then he left. It was very different after that.
He said, well, that's that.
Then he was like, I'm out. And I was like, why? It's like a dream team, really, of people that were working on this, that a lot of them are no longer at Nintendo, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So there was that announcement, and there was just this burst of excitement over like, oh my gosh, looks like Nintendo's setting up to have a great E3, really building upon last year, which was the intended result. But kind of after that video went out, like that's when we really got brought in to help with kind of the more like communications-y parts of it. Like we started hearing like, we don't really have a plan for sharing the rest of the details of this thing. And we actually have a lot that we need to get out there in about a month's time or so. So we really need some help to get us from now to actually getting us to E3 when this thing is going to happen.
Right.
And one of the first things that we got brought in to work on was this follow-up video that they did, which was starring Eric and Bill. And I don't know if Bill's doing some sort of a character in this one. Because some of his delivery is a little strange, I found.
He's very strange. It was like he was acting, but I don't know why he would be.
Right.
Yeah.
But they had a lot to get through there. So they introduced that the host was Kevin Pereira. That they would have invited players who were made up of like actual speedrunners or people who played competitively in different games, and other just kind of like general content creators. Like they had people from Smosh, for example, there.
Yeah.
And then they also shared this point about, so there's going to be 16 total competitors, and 8 of them are going to come from these Best Buy qualifiers.
Yeah.
But there were only 8 qualifying locations in the entire country. So this was a bit of a bummer news after the big, great buildup of, oh my gosh, we're doing this event. Was like, wait, there's 50 states. You have 8 locations. And the people who won those qualifiers would go to the big event, which is cool. But it was logistically hard, if not impossible, for a lot of people to actually go to these things.
Right. And the thing was, this is so early in the days of Nintendo doing any sort of competitive event. They've since really improved the way they do qualifiers, like a lot, I mean, all of the qualifiers are online now. They didn't have the ability to do that back then. So a physical event was sort of the only way. And just given the limitations of what, the staff could do within that time, that was the best they could do. But I think people were definitely disappointed.
Yeah, and I remember there being some discussion around Kevin Pereira at the host, because he would often host this sort of like annual sales event that the sales team would have, but and we never attended that event, but the thing that we would hear was like,
he does a pretty
raunchy show.
Yeah, it was like it's rated M.
It's fine for a bunch of salespeople, but I don't know about the Nintendo World Championships. So I remember there was some hand wringing over him as the selection, but he ended up doing a good job.
Yeah, I think eventually someone was convinced them that he was going to be like PG.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yes.
And he was, yeah.
Another one of the things that we had to reveal beforehand, and I think this was one of the really great things that they did with this event, was integrating some of the players and winners from the 1990 event. So we had as guests of honor Jeff Hansen, who won the under 11 bracket in 1990, and Thor Ackerland, who won the 12 to 17 bracket in 1990. And so, we got hooked up with them, and we got to chat with them, and we were setting them up for interviews, and really started to tell the story of that 1990 event and kind of build the anticipation of what this new event could be. And it was so great to have their blessing and their involvement. They were really cool, and they had some amazing stories to tell. We also got all this archival material that I really wish I had saved somewhere, because some of it's amazing. I did find online this photo that I love so much of Jeff Hansen getting out of this limousine in all the Nintendo gear. And I think I was like, this is like every kid's dream come true in 1990. Oh, like, look at this. I'm getting out. Oh my gosh. This is I love this picture so much. Like, it's just so like, it's amazing.
An encapsulation of every kid's most wished for thing. A miracle would be this photo of you having this experience, Yeah. It was cool to meet them as adults too. It's like, oh my gosh, you're like, you feel like you knew them as kids because you felt like you knew who they were, and then you're like, oh my gosh, you're all grown
right
up.
And they were there, and I remember we were doing things with like interviews and stuff with them, like right up to the time that the event started.
Exactly.
And it does make me realize, like, not many people were actually at these 1990 events. So it's hard to know like what they were actually like. Like, they have taken this like mythic proportion of like, oh my God, the 1990 Nintendo World Championships was the most incredible event ever. But like, there aren't a lot of firsthand accounts of it. Like
recollections. Yeah.
Right. Like, so, we can have our own perspectives on 2015, but it's extremely hard to actually compare it to 1990.
Yeah.
Because almost nobody was there.
You have to talk to the people that were there, but even their memories, I think, because they were children, and they are also like.
But if you're Jeff Hansen, you won. Like, you're going to have a very, this is like the greatest memory of your life, maybe.
Of your life?
It might be.
What else happened in Jeff Hansen's
life? It'd be up there.
Life?
If I wanted, it'd be up there. Are you kidding me?
Okay. Wow.
You can stay in Vietnam for all I care. Jeez. So, yeah, we're frantically getting out all the final details about this thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's like this thing coming in pretty hot, and as you know, Eric and his team are kind of like getting all the show logistics figured out. Yeah. But then we finally get there, and the event's ready to happen. So, important to note that E3. This event was like the first thing that Nintendo did.
Right. It was on like a Sunday.
It was on a Sunday when E3 actually didn't officially start until Tuesday.
Correct.
Which made it an extremely long week.
We were there for a long time.
In LA for us. I remember we also did a big pre-show event for Star Fox Zero, which was kind of the game of the show for us there. So yeah, I remember just like 2014, it was like, this is like an agonizingly long and hard
Yes.
E3.
We basically were in LA for like almost 2 weeks, I think.
It's crazy, right?
The before and after, yeah.
But, something that became a real like hot item once we got there was like there were just these concerns over the attendance.
Yeah.
And the morning, like it was not until the afternoon, and we kept getting these notes of like, hey, there's not a lot of people in this line.
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to get worried that there's not going to be a lot of fan turnout. And this was like, this is a free event. Like,
yeah,
if you're in LA, if you want to come to this, you can just come in and check it out. And it's like, I don't know if our pre-promotion has hit that point clear enough of, do people know that this is a free event? Do people know this is happening? Do people know that they can come? Like there was a lot of panic and energy around like, what are we doing? We're going to get these last second tweets out.
They were scared because they didn't see like people camping out though for it days leading up to the event. It wasn't like the day of the event.
This was not a problem we had with the Smash Invitational the year before.
That's true.
That was big from the moment like people were waiting out there. Yes, it was Smash.
Yeah. Nintendo's used to like the camping out though. That's the thing.
Yeah. So it was just like, oh my gosh, like panic, turn around these social posts, these whatevers. Like whenever the people involved start tweeting themselves, like that's when you know.
That's when you know.
Concern has set in.
Yes.
If you ever see somebody from Nintendo who usually does not tweet about Nintendo stuff, saying, hey, you should check. If you see somebody saying, hey, you should check out Nintendo World Championships this weekend, that game is bombing.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is true. Like that, the attendance at that event was not great. There's some shots of the crowd where
it's like empty.
And it was in the Nokia Theater where, Nintendo used to have its press conferences. Yeah. It was a little bit empty, I will admit. And I don't know exactly why that was, but it was. So
people didn't know what to expect from it. Smash Invitational
25 years.
Yeah. 25 years, people don't know what to expect, I think.
So they, for the stream, they did a pre-show with some Treehouse people that were playing some Yoshi's Woolly World, but then they also had this amazing shadow drop of Earthbound Beginnings with this great video from Mr. Itoy. So they released that on the Virtual Console. I was like, wow, this is like a huge...
Off to a great start.
A huge drop. And then the event started, and I'll just kind of run through all the games that were included and some of the key points for that. So Splatoon, that obviously was just coming out. Original The Legend of Zelda. Now, Metroid Prime Federation Force Blast Ball. This was the first reveal of Federation Force.
Yeah.
But nobody knew that that's what it was. It was just called Blast Ball.
Blast Ball.
And it was like, oh, this is a big world reveal. And everybody had to talk around it of like, oh, this looks to be some sort of a competitive shooting / soccer game. And nobody could come out and say that it was Metroid because that was getting revealed later in the week in the digital event. Right.
Yeah.
And I think this was the first of many nails in the coffin for this game.
Oh, this was the beginning of the end for this game.
Oh my gosh. Why is there a competitive sport in the universe of Metroid?
Don't know.
Why is that the first thing you are showing for a new Metroid game?
Why is it that...
I don't know.
You're not even saying that it's a new Metroid game at all? You're just dancing around it at your own event?
This is one of those things where somebody made this decision and somebody decided this was a great decision. But if you start to ask any follow-up questions of why it's a great decision,
be able to
nobody can tell you. Literally nobody can tell you.
Right.
So that's what that was. Wow.
And then it became a complete failure.
Yeah. We had Super Metroid, Mario Kart 8, Balloon Fight. And then we had this great exhibition of Super Smash Brothers for Wii U, Reggie versus Hungrybox. And this had been set up the year before in the Invitational. Mm-hmm. And, Reggie said, I'm terrible at Smash, but, if I ever have a chance, let's play, and I'm going to kick your butt, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm amazed that this thing actually happened. So we had this one-on-one with Reggie and Hungrybox, and there's this whole like kind of boxing-esque like promo thing where like the trash talk I thought was getting like very heated. Like
it was getting like out of control. I was getting kind of uncomfortable.
I didn't like the tone of the trash talk. I was like, somebody's gonna get like pushed off the stage or like put in a headlock or something. Like, I don't know.
And it's not gonna be Reggie. Reggie practiced too. He practiced so much because he wanted to play Little Mac. And
but so Reggie, he was being
Little
very.
Mac is a hard character to play too.
Right. He was being very really good-natured about this.
Yeah.
Now there is one detail about this. Reggie did terribly. Self-professed, not a big Smash player. But we do know there is one detail that may have resulted in his bad outcome, which is that he had been practicing with the Wii U Pro controller.
Right.
And if you look at the stream, you can see he is handed a GameCube controller. And there's like a moment where he looks down, he's like, what? And then it cuts away. But if you know, he's probably, in his mind, he's like, oh no.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that controller feels so different, yeah.
Right, if you have been playing Smash on a different controller and then you're handed a completely different controller, like, I could understand why it could go from bad to worse real fast.
Very quickly, yeah.
Yes.
But he was so good-natured about it. He was being a good sport. Yes. But I kind of feel like Hungry Box is being, like, a little too mean. Like, he was taking it too seriously.
Yes.
Obviously, he was going to beat Reggie. There was no question of that. Obviously.
Maybe he was worried. I don't know.
Why would he be worried? Like, he should have.
You never know. It's like, I don't know. Reggie's been training.
Had like a good-natured fight, a good-natured game, but he kind of.
They should have done something where like they disconnected Reggie's controller, but they actually had like Mr. Sakurai in the back playing for him. Like that's what they really should have done.
They should have done that,
and nobody would have known.
Nobody would have known.
No.
And Mr. Sakurai could play like with his hand behind his back.
Exactly.
So. Yeah, that would have
He's bringing up debug menus. He's depowering Hungry Box. He's doing all this stuff. Yeah,
he's like edge guarding. He's got downbeat Hungry Box to the next oblivion. That'll learn him.
So that was an extremely entertaining interstitial, this exhibition. And then we have the big finale, which was this incredible Super Mario Maker finale.
Yeah.
Which featured all of these stages. And the competitors were John Numbers, who was one of the winners from a Best Buy, and Cosmo, who's this great speedrunner.
Yeah.
And they were playing in all these never-before-seen levels in Mario Maker that were made by Morgan Ritchie and Eric Smith of the Treehouse. Eric Smith, the same Eric Smith that I mopped the floor with in Smash Brothers a few weeks ago.
No longer at Nintendo, though.
Different situation at Mario Maker. Like these two, this is like the Lennon and McCartney of Mario Maker creators. Like
this is such a good. I love this story so much because of this moment. Not only because it was just such like an iconic moment of Nintendo competition history. It was like this element of surprise that you had with the Mario Maker levels will never be replicated again. Even if you make more Mario Maker levels that are zany and cool, you will never replicate this moment. These moments where people were just like popping off because you just didn't know what to expect. You didn't even see it coming that these levels were going to be made by these incredible people in the treehouse, and then having these like really unexpected things happen was just like such a magical thing. And the best part is that, Morgan and Eric are like real life best buds for life. Like they are like the cutest two people ever. And you can just feel their love and passion that they like poured into these levels, and like even like their collaboration and their friendship, like that is what made these levels magical. And that's never going to happen again. Like they're never going to be able to do this again. It's amazing.
And at this time, Mario Maker was not out yet. And people did not know the scope of what you could do entirely in Mario Maker. So this was a real like OMG moment as all these crazy things were happening. All these weird mashups from Mario history were happening and playing out. And it's like they built these levels to basically troll these players and make it like mess with these super high level players. And I agree. It's like a top moment from any Nintendo event ever. Like we were in the crowd and we were just like on our feet, like cheering along. Like this is amazing.
We hadn't seen that. Like you can't react because before, even if you saw the levels, because you didn't know how the competitors were going to react to those things that they put in. So it was just such a a magical thing that just never can happen again, which is really incredible to
Right,
witness
right.
live.
So in the end, John Numbers won. Congrats to him. There was this big award ceremony with Mr. Miyamoto, and then they revealed that those Mario Maker levels are going to be in the final version of the game, which
Yeah,
was like such a sweet moment for
right.
Morgan and Eric, because they didn't know that going into
They
that.
didn't
Like
know.
that
Yeah.
was a true, like, I'm hearing this for the first time thing for them. And what an
Love
incredible
it.
feeling that must have been.
I love it.
Yeah.
Best friends for life.
So it was definitely an entertaining event, but we quickly had to get to work of like analyzing it and doing reports for it, and it became it was a tricky event to make a decision on, like, was this successful or not? Like, we obviously had targets and metrics and hopes and goals going into it, and it was very kind of in the middle. I was like, well, it didn't completely smash our expectations, but it didn't completely bomb either. And it was just like, I think that was everybody's reaction coming out of it. Was just like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Being the first one, there was an element of like, let's forgive, you know, some of the results that were kind of mid in favor of experimentation. That was a very interesting time in the history of Nintendo, where they were rewarding experimentation. They were rewarding these things that nowadays they won't. Nowadays, if you don't get like the best result, you're not going to do the thing, you know? So there was that sense a little bit, but it was just kind of hard to determine whether or not it was completely a success overall.
Yeah. So, coming out of it was like, wow, that was a really cool event. Like, there were a lot of highlights and memorable moments from that, but kind of going into E3, like the feeling was like, oh, was that great or was that not? Like, nobody really could say. So it had kind of a meh feeling on it, but it was a very memorable kickoff to what was otherwise like one of the absolute worst E3s that we were ever a part of.
Ever. Yeah.
So, going from the highs of 2014 to the absolute lows, like this was the Nuppets digital event, Star Fox Zero, obviously like not a great game, not for everybody. A really weak end to that with like this Mario 30th anniversary celebration.
Yeah.
And just, didn't really have the games in the booth that year either.
Right.
And it was like, wow, we really didn't do it this year.
Scraping the bottom a bit.
And yeah, I remember we got really like taken to task in a meeting by like a visibly unwell Mr. Iwata, which was just like, well, that's the cherry on top of this awful.
That's one of my like most horrifying core memories is like, that meeting and seeing Mr. Iwata just. I'm still like a little anxious even talking about it. Just like, oh, this is not going well, and like two, like he's not well, and you're like, oh my gosh, like it was really jarring. It was very, very, and I was like, it was like night, like late at night.
It was late,
too,
yeah.
I remember, and I was just like, I think I was like deer in headlights, like terrified.
Right, and he did not come to that E3, and a month later he had passed away. So yeah,
it scared me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had that feeling, but yeah, that was definitely an interesting time to revisit and an interesting event. And I'm curious how they're going to translate this to this game. There was also a Nintendo World Championships in 2017 that we were involved with. I would say that one is significantly less interesting than this one.
Yeah, it really didn't hit, that one.
Yeah, I don't care for that one as much either. So maybe we will or won't tell the story of that if people are interested. But yeah, I think 2015 is a good one to look at when we're talking about Nintendo World Championships.
Yeah.
Now, we did have 2 of our Patreon subscribers in the building for Nintendo World Championships 2015. Cool. So we asked them to share some stories that they have. First from none other than Paul Gale. We're digging deep into the Paul Gale archive here. I'll read some thoughts from him. It felt like a celebration of Nintendo and not just a competition because there was lore, artwork, music that we all love, trivia swag, Nintendo folks that we all respect, like Shigeru Miyamoto present, and an energetic crowd. It felt important and almost necessary for Nintendo to put on this event. Wii U sadly was struggling for the last 2 years, and even though the 3DS was faring better, Nintendo in the public eye was not as powerful as it was several years prior. This was kind of a reminder to the mainstream that, hey, we matter. I'll always be a fan and supporter of the company, as I'm sure many in attendance were as well, but I think the Nintendo World Championships 2015 was also made in an attempt to wake up some dormant fans. Did it work? To a degree, yes. It walked so Nintendo Live could run. I think those are some good comments from Paul there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tuskoob, developer of Kit and Krysta, Krysta's big decision,
boy.
Tuskoob.
Yeah, look at how far Tuskoob has come since 2015.
So we actually met Tuskoob at Nintendo World Championships.
Yeah.
At some point, a tent opened up with Kit and Krysta selling promotional t-shirts. We were in a tent?
I don't remember this.
I guess we were. I waited in line and said something to the effect of, wow, you're Kit and Krysta from Nintendo Minute. This is cool. I think it was specifically Krysta that I got my shirt from. Around then, some representative or someone from Nintendo came up to me since I was cosplaying as Ness and invited me to sit up front since they wanted everyone clad in Nintendo costumes and gear to be in the camera view. Wouldn't happen today.
No.
This is amazing. After the event, Mr. Miyamoto came up to the stage, just like in the first picture, and was waving down at all the attendees who were up at the stage. However, when he got to the end of the crowd, around where I was, he reached down just to me and shook my hand using both arms. I kid you not. It was such an honor, and I don't know why he did that, but it was the coolest moment of my life up until that point. I remember telling my dad after, it's like he blessed me to confirm my path to becoming a game developer. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Incredible story. See, lifelong memories are made here.
Oh, that's sweet. I think that is true. I think that's exactly why he did it.
Yeah.